I would like to introduce you today to a new concept that we found out by looking at the metabolism of breast cancer cells, really. And in doing so, you will see in the very brief presentation that I have that we saw something which is kind of unusual. It was surprising to us, and we were able by, metabolism is something that you read in your textbooks, and you probably heard about it in high school, and many of the pathways are really well established, so that's a great bonus for this kind of study. And we could immediately use all of that existing knowledge to try and translate what we saw into a new clinical approach, and I would like to take you into this study right now. So basically, the energy metabolism that we depend upon, and everybody depends upon, is that we eat foods that contain proteins, carbohydrate, and fats. And in a number of different cycles, these are broken down into pieces, and the pieces are then being used to generate energy, to generate new building blocks from which the cells regenerate themselves and grow, and the organism can move about and get more food and so on. So there are some key factors that I'd like to point out to you which are generated in these cycles of energy metabolism. The outcome is ATP, which is the currency, the energy currency of the cell that it uses to be motile, to generate more building blocks to grow. And at the same time, and this is not the only one, but I would like to point this out to you because it became the center of our attention in our study, is a group of molecules which are called nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. I'm calling them NAD plus and NADH. And there's a number of these pairs in our body that are constantly balanced out by our metabolism. And what they do is they provide cofactors for enzymatic reactions that we depend upon in making new energy, making building blocks for the cell. And importantly, they also keep a healthy redox balance. So one thing that we noticed is that this material is being produced in mitochondria, which are parts of our cell. Here's a whole cell with a nucleus that controls the genetic outfit of the cell. But here we have these little mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of the cell, which also contain genetic material. And they're passed on when the cell divides to daughter cells, not in a really orderly fashion like the nuclear genes, but in a more unorganized and much less well understood fashion. So within these mitochondria, we have what we call the respiratory chain. So when we breathe, when we inhale oxygen, this oxygen is being used in the electron transport chain in these mitochondria to ultimately generate energy. Here's the energy output, the ATP. So we have 5 of these complexes, complex 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is the ATP synthase that makes the energy currency. Importantly, the first complex here that brings in and first utilizes the oxygen is the complex that makes this compound here, the NAD plus out of NADH. And so these compounds are constantly being used, reused, and recycled in the cell as the energy is being produced, used, and building blocks are being made and degraded. So how did we come to this concept of normalizing mitochondrial complex 1 function and found out that it inhibits tumor growth and metastasis? We had seen a paper in Science a couple of years ago that reported that when people took very aggressive cancer cells and took the mitochondria out of them and passed them onto a cell that was less aggressive, that the cell that received those aggressive mitochondria now became aggressive. So we really were interested in how this worked and what the mechanism of it was, and could we use this in order to control the aggressiveness of the cell? And that's actually what we did. So we used a gene that's called NDI1, and we don't need to go into any details, but you will see this popping up a couple of times. And the most important part to take home is that when we introduce this gene into breast cancer cells, 2 different human breast cancer cells are shown here, we normalize the complex 1 activity in the mitochondria, and along with that, what we see is that the tumor growth capability of the cells is dramatically reduced, and the ability of the cells to also metastasize is very dramatically reduced, and these are very aggressive cell models. So that was a key finding for us, that warranted to us to dig deeper into this and go further and try to see, can we find out how this works and how can we relate this, translate this into a therapy? So essentially, what I just showed you in a graph you see here in some representative pictures of mice, where you see the signal is where tumor cells are. We can use methodology and technology in these mice to find by imaging where the tumor cells are and how aggressively they are growing. So in the control cells, we had a lot more signal, as you can see. In the ones in which we normalized this complex one, we had a lot less signal. So what did we do in order to find out if we were on the right track, in order to see whether this complex one thing was really something to go after? What we did is we looked at the knowledge that has been in the literature on the complex one structure, and then we zoomed in on this one protein here. It's a complex because it's a complex thing, and so it contains 46 molecules, proteins, and one of them we knocked out, and that is the one that binds the NADH, and it then helps this complex to convert NADH into NAD+. So we went ahead and knocked out this part of the molecule, and what we find is that if we do that, the cells become a lot more aggressive than they already were. So the one thing that you see is, okay, we altered the complex one activity because the cells cannot breathe properly anymore. Oxygen consumption is down, and when you inject these cells into animals, here's the control, and here's the one in which you altered the complex one activity, they become a lot more aggressive. So we had evidence that if you normalize this particular part of the energy metabolism, you end up with a more benign, with a less aggressive cell. If you go ahead and you instigate more damage to this system, you end up with a more aggressive cell. So to us, that meant we were on the right track following this particular type of molecule. So what we then did, we did a number of mechanistic studies in order to see how the alteration in complex one activity actually affected tumor growth and metastasis. And there's two things that really stood out. It was an upregulation of autophagy and a downregulation of growth pathways. So what is autophagy? Autophagy is a pathway in which a cell, and that can be any cell in us, and it's particularly in babies, this is really, really important. So if you picture a newborn, within the first couple of days, this newborn loses weight because it is not really able to suckle just yet effectively and convert the energy that it ingests with the food into the growth-promoting mechanisms. So during that time, this baby has a really, really high level of autophagy going on. And that means that essentially the baby and cells in our body, if we are deprived of nutrients, we can go into a state where we kind of eat up our own parts of our cells. And the body does it in a way to be really efficient and recycle damaged parts. So primarily, the damaged organelles will be eaten up and converted into new energy so the cell can survive and sustain, but not really do much else. So the baby will lose weight and the cell will stop growing, basically. So within this pathway, there's a number of very important proteins. We focused on one which is called ATG5. We knocked it down to inhibit this pathway, and then we saw that if we try to normalize complex one activity and at the same time we inhibit this autophagy process, the mechanism of alleviating metastasis was no longer so active. So that meant, that autophagy is really an important player in this pathway. But one thing which is even more important and which then led us to move into a clinical translation, really, or we are hoping to move toward it, is this finding here that complex one is important, okay? And we know, based on the textbooks and on many, many studies, that, okay, complex one takes NADH and makes NAD+ out of it. So it kind of tips the redox balance in a cell toward having more of this material around. So if you do that, you end up, and we did this in the cells in which we had enhanced the complex one activity, you end up with a balance where you have more of this than of that. And if you take the mitochondria of these cells, you see the same thing. So we were on the right track. And at this point, we asked ourselves, okay, so we wanted to accomplish two things with this next question that we asked. Number one is, can we really establish evidence that the balance of NAD to NADH is important for breast cancer progression? And secondly, once we find that out, how can we use this for translation into making cells more normal, to inhibit the aggressiveness of a breast cancer cell? So this is the pathway basically that the cell uses to generate NAD+ in the first place. So we ingest a number of materials, some amino acids. These are vitamin C, nicotinic acid, and nicotinamide. And here's another one, a derivative of this. And these are the precursors, the building blocks that the cell uses to make NAD. There's a couple of enzymes along the pathway that are really critical that the cell needs in order to arrive with this compound. So we used two approaches, basically. In the first approach, we started to really inhibit a key enzyme here that is used to use a building block and to make it into this supposedly important component. So in one of our approaches, we knocked down this enzyme, and we found that the cells became more aggressive, became a lot more aggressive, because now they had less of this material. In another approach, which is the more important approach really, is that we wanted to push the cells into having more of this, so we gave it more of the precursors, for instance, this material or this material. And as a result, the cell became less aggressive. The cell didn't die, but the cell really lost its edge. So, and this is what actually comes out. And I show you just, this is a cartoon, and I show you just one mouse, but the mouse that I show you is representative of most of what we saw. So first of all, you block the synthesis. You end up with less of this and with more of that. So you tip the balance kind of in the more aggressive way. So if you then look at what happens to a mouse if you inject these tumor cells, the mouse has a lot more metastasis. If you boost the NAD synthesis by giving the precursors of the compound, you end up more of this with more of this and less of that. And in return, the mouse looks more normal and healthy, and the tumor cells are almost not metastatic anymore when you inject them. So here is now an experiment which really prompted us. I mean, the first one is, a tail vein injection of tumor cells, and it is really great. But we have seen in the clinic many examples where it was really successful in mouse experiments. They were injected with tumor cells, metastasis was inhibited, or colonization of a target organ, let's say the lung or the liver or the brain even. And in many cases, these approaches, unfortunately, do not translate into the clinic. But at some point in time, I know we want to talk about clinical trials, and I was really encouraged to see this morning in the previous session that there is this trial where the new Pfizer compound is being used without chemotherapy. For example, to give a chance to see actually an outcome of what this material does. So it is just a sidetrack. But this is what I think is, important to all of us and important to me when I try to go into a clinical trial now. So I'm not trying to bypass standard of care because that's a no-no in our case. But I think in theory, it could lead to this. So in our experiment here, the next step that we did and that really nailed for us that we are on the right track is that now we used a mouse model in which we didn't do anything but use a transgenic mouse which has the polyoma middle T antigen in its mammary gland. And during the course of the mouse will spontaneously develop breast cancer. And in the mouse, we have multiple fat pads. And they will develop breast cancer in most of these fat pads, and at some point in time they will metastasize, and the mouse is a real advanced patient of breast cancer and breast cancer metastasis. So in this case, we treated these mice and nothing else at the time of weaning, when they started to drink their own liquid, basically, in the drinking water with precursors of the NAD+. Nicotinamide in this case. And what you see is that the tumors, these are the sizes, the weights of the tumors, they were considerably smaller at a certain age, in 80 days, when the untreated mouse has really big tumors and needs to be sacrificed. They were as small approximately as a mouse that doesn't have the polyoma middle T antigen. And here you can look at some of these fat pads and tumors. So here you see clearly this is a tumor. And this is, if you look at this particular fat pad, it's a more normal fat pad. So the appearance of these matches up with the weight and the size. And if you then look in the histology, and this was something which really, we're not pathologists, but we know what a breast tumor looks like and what a normal breast looks like. So when we sectioned those tumors of the untreated and of the treated mice, we were really stunned, because here you see advanced carcinoma. These mice have invasive carcinoma, and all of them had metastatic disease in the lung. If you look at the age-matched littermates that received this NUM treatment in the drinking water, you see a totally different pathology. You see even a normal, almost normal breast, you see some hyperplasia, and you see early onset of carcinoma, but you didn't see this scenario here, which clinically is your advanced adenocarcinoma of the breast. So what we had here is we didn't possibly eradicate the disease, but we really pushed out the development of the disease considerably. And none of the mice in the treatment group here had metastatic disease that we could detect, whereas all of these had to be sacrificed because of the tumor burden and metastatic disease. And this is a quantification of the histology, basically coming to the conclusion that you have a much faster advancement without this treatment, and you have a much inhibited advancement of the disease if you simply give this precursor of NAT metabolism. So at last, I want to thank the people in the lab who did the work. And some of you know Antonio because he did most of these studies, and some of you had been on a field trip in my lab and got to know him, and he's a really fun person to work with, and everybody else too. And so I want to thank them and Hugh very, very much.